Alright, enough of that. No copyright. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jayce. Power Rangers. I grew up loving the show Power Rangers. Watched it constantly. I mean, I don't think you could ask for anything else in a TV show. Kung fu action, giant robots and monsters fighting each other, superheroes. I mean, that's everything you need. It's right there. You just put them all together, and I was sitting there like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. So, of course, they made a movie. If you know how the show worked, they didn't actually film the action scenes. They just took a show made in Japan called Super Sentai, cut out the action scenes, put it into Power Rangers, and just filmed all the non-superhero human stuff separately. But the Power Rangers movie has its own villain, own story, everything all its own. Which, if I remember right, means it's non-canon, because I don't think anything that happens in the movie carries on to the TV show, like story-wise. They did reuse a lot of the props, though, which was pretty normal for Power Rangers, because basically Power Rangers is no budget. Just hope they can pay the actors, borrow whatever costumes they can from Super Sentai, and just make it work. So, where else to get started but to watch the movie? So we start this movie off with obvious cheap ripoff of the Star Wars opening scroll. And then we're introduced to our main characters. We got Rocky, Adam, Aisha, Billy, Kimberly, and of course, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tommy Oliver. His introduction was originally as the Green Ranger, now he's the White Ranger. He's just an all-around badass. So we cannot forget the real main characters of Power Rangers, Bulk and Skull.
All right, pinheads. The stealth eagle's about to fly. Ditto with a swooping swallow.
These guys were the best part of the show. They are the longest recurring cast members. They started out in season 1, made it all the way to season 6. Every other Power Ranger had filtered out, been replaced more than once. So these guys were the comic relief duo, and I love them. And we start off a Power Rangers movie, how else but a random skydiving scene? This scene does do a little bit of good because it kind of establishes their characters as they're jumping out of the plane. You know, you got Billy speaking nerd speak as he jumps out.
Systems go!
Rocky has no personality and says the most generic phrase possible.
Banzai!
And Tommy, being the cool guy that he is, jumps out of the plane with a snowboard for no reason. I don't get it. I think it's just to show off that he's cool. And I'll give the movie some credit. The skydiving stuff was actually kind of cool because the shots are like really good. Except for the part where they all come together and you can clearly tell it's on a green screen. And of course, as they're landing, they have an announcer say all their names, so that way you know who the characters are.
Here comes Rocky, who lands right on target. And here comes Aisha.
Which, now that I think about it, is probably the only reason this scene exists. We're also introduced to this kid character and his dad. They were not in the original show. And how else would you follow up a skydiving scene? By a random rollerblading scene. Because Power Rangers. That was a whole thing in the show. I mean, these kids basically did every single activity you could possibly imagine for a teenager.
It's like, oh, let's go dirt bike racing and charity, and we're also going to fight crime, and we're also going to have like homework and stuff. We're also going to rollerblade. We're also going to skydive.
It's like, how do you have this much time? Not to mention in the original show, they also had jobs where they worked at like a mall. The original Black Ranger taught hip-hop Keto, which was dancing mixed with martial arts. Yeah. Didn't really help the whole racially insensitive thing where the Black Ranger was black and the Yellow Ranger was Asian. And then Bulk and Skull land in a construction site with the Rangers skating through the construction site also. And for some reason, the construction workers only care about Bulk and Skull and don't care about the kids who are skating through. Then we have the construction workers discover this weird, like, platform thing on the ground where they were digging, and a weird egg hand thing comes out from the ground. So naturally, one of the construction workers' first ideas is, let me touch that thing. What does it do? And the Rangers are skating along being edgy, cool teenagers, and then get a call from Zordon and Alpha, and then turn into the Rainbow?
Chase the rainbow, motherfucker!
So we get to the command center, and of course there's Alpha and Zordon. If you haven't seen the show, Zordon's a giant talking head, and Alpha's a robot that is kind of annoying.
Alpha, what's going on?
A massive surge of evil energy is overloading our sensors. Ay, 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 ay.
Imagine C-3PO but for kids. Cut back to that dig site and we see the classic villains from the Power Rangers TV show. We got Rita, Lord Zed, Goldar, whatever the pig dude's name is that I don't remember. And naturally, Zed had to include a quip when he takes out the security guards about how he's putting them to sleep and not killing them.
No need to wake him. In fact, why don't you take a little nap yourself?
Because of course, this is a kid's movie. But Zed opens up the egg and it looks like egg yolk. Cool.
What? You spent 2,000 years looking for a tub of snot?
Patience, mow them out.
But no, eventually some just awful CGI forms to create Ivan Ooze, the villain of this movie. Zed is always going to have a special place in my heart, but so is Ivan Ooze. He's very weird. I don't know where they came up with this guy for a villain, but he does the job well. He comes across like a legitimate threat that's different from the ones in the show. Although the weird like slime snot thing, I don't know how I feel about that. But then Ivan gives what is maybe my favorite line of the movie.
What is that odious stench? Smells like teenagers.
The Power Rangers show up and see a security guard, who then transforms into Ivan Ooze with some of the worst green screen effects ever. I feel like I'm gonna say that a lot in this movie. But hey, when there's an occasional decent effect, it'll feel kind of cool. It's like, look at that. That doesn't look terrible. Good job, movie. And I'll give Ivan Ooze credit. This is also a pretty good line.
You obviously don't know who you're dealing with, Mr. Raisinhead.
Really?
Yeah, we're the Power Rangers.
Roll credits.
So, Zordon's still using a bunch of kids to do his dirty work. Well, meet my kids.
I think that's the only reason Ivan Ooze kind of works in this movie. He's the only villain who actually gets like quippy back with the Rangers. Because in the show you had Zed, who was just loud and screamy. You had Rita, who was loud and screamy. And you had Goldar, who was less loud and screamy, but not very smart. What follows is the best scene in the movie. Yes, this is what I watch Power Rangers for, is some cool hand-to-hand combat. I know a lot of people watched it for the Zord fights, and don't get me wrong, the Zord fights are cool, but I always loved the martial arts scenes that really made Power Rangers stand out as a show. While the Rangers are dealing with the Predator knockoffs, Ivan Ooze breaks into the command center.
Uh-oh.
And you know what? Ivan Ooze makes this movie. He's hilarious. I love this guy. Why was this guy not a character in the actual TV show? Back to the Rangers, they have the best moment of every episode of Power Rangers. The morphing sequence.
Let's do it, guys! Right. It's Morphin time!
Triceratops!
White Tiger!
And going back to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it was so classic, just holding up their symbol with a green screen obviously in the background. It was just super epic. It's like, here are the Power Rangers. And I'll say, I'm not the biggest fan of this morphing sequence in the movie. Like, it's fine. I don't know what I was expecting. Much better than those weird moments in the later seasons of Power Rangers when they use a cell phone. This is what I mean when this is the best like action scene in the movie. It's the only time we see the Power Rangers have like a physical fight wearing their Ranger outfits.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
But it's understandable with this movie because apparently the costumes that they had been using were super, super cheap and were literally like breaking constantly, and they had to put them together with like duct tape. So I wonder if they just like wrote in the eventual plot of this movie because they didn't have the Ranger suits anymore. Regardless, super dope fight scene, seeing all the different Rangers' personalities, or if you're Rocky, lack of one. If you want to see what I'm talking about, Rocky is the only Power Ranger in this whole fight scene to not at least have one funny line or anything.
Nice flight!
It's gonna be one messy night.
Have a nice trip! See you next fall.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6! Going airborne! These guys don't know when to quit.
But oh no, the Power Rangers demorph. What's wrong? The Rangers teleport back to the command center to find it destroyed. And there's actually a kind of cool moment in this movie. It's the only time we ever see Zordon out of his tube. Now I know in the actual show this doesn't ever happen. This is a non-canon thing. But I thought it was a cool moment, even though it completely changes his voice.
You must be strong.
Like, he just sounds like a dying old man. I mean, he is a dying old man. Basically, the power for the command center's down. They need to go to an alien planet to get the power, but it's a whole thing of, oh no, they're using the last bit of power in the command center to get to the planet. There's no way to get back, so they're just going there hoping to get the power. Let's hope that works out. Back at Zed and Rita's base, they're talking about Ivan Ooze and how he just let the Power Rangers get away. Naturally, Ivan Ooze shows up and immediately basically kills them. I mean, puts them inside of a snow globe. It's kind of a funny scene. Real quick, I did just want to mention, they did this like weird effect with Zed on his like brain, and it's like waving the whole time. I never noticed it as a kid, but it's really creepy and freaks me out as an adult. But yeah, he just talks to Goldar and Pig Dude. He just tells them, hey, join me or die. So they join him. He hawks up a big old loogie, creates a bunch of vulture guys, of course, naturally, and tells them, hey, fly to that planet that the Rangers are going to and kill them. How he knows they're going to that specific planet, I don't know. He just does. The Rangers land on the new planet and discover a kind of gruesome, decomposing corpse. So the vulture guys show up on the planet. The Rangers fight them for a little bit. Gonna be honest, this fight scene's not the best. The Rangers just kind of get beat up for a few minutes. But then they get saved by this chick. And are we sure this is still a kid's movie? We get to see a little bit more on what Ivan's doing back on Earth, and he's just walking around dressed as like a weird wizard thing, giving out Ivan's ooze to children. Who would have ever thought Power Rangers was like 20 years ahead of the time on the whole slime craze for kids? But yeah, basically this chick is a warrior woman named Dulcia? I hope I'm saying that right. She talks about, oh, the power's over there, I'll take you to go get it, but first I'm gonna give you the power of the Ninjetti. You cannot tell me this scene is not hilarious. The music, all of the parents walking through. Also, this woman, why is she dressed like Harper from Wizards of Waverly Place? Back on the alien planet, the Rangers get some cool new ninja powers. We got the bear.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
The ape, the wolf, the crane, the frog.
I'm a frog.
Okay. And the falcon. And they get these kind of cool new ninja garb. Also, Dulcia turns into an owl and flies away.
I am an owl with a unique neck. Believe it or not.
Because Power Rangers. And then we see Ivan Ooze is using the parents to continue digging up on that dig site from the beginning of the movie. And then the vulture guys come back and basically are like, we didn't kill the Power Rangers. And Ivan just straight up murders them.
Do you want us to take another whack at it?
How about taking another quack at it?
Ooze reveals that he's having the parents dig up a giant robot. Because Power Rangers. There's also actually a pretty cool fight scene back on the alien planet where they fight this skeleton of a dinosaur. The last part of Ooze's plan when he's done using the humans is for literally them to just straight up kill themselves. Jump off a cliff. Like The Happening or Bird Box style kill themselves. Here we're introduced to some of the worst CGI of the movie.
Skin my creature's life! Life, I tell you! Life!
Now, like, don't get me wrong, the Zord fights in the original show were not perfect. It was clearly two dudes in, like, costumes fighting on, like, a fake miniature city. But, like, it was cool because it was, like, intricate, cool fight scenes. There's actually another kind of cool fight scene back on the alien planet. I'll give this movie some credit. They really don't let up on the action. It just would have been cooler if they were actually in their ranger suits and not these ninja suits. Which, it's especially weird in this moment because they even still have a morphing sequence. Kind of. They were already wearing the ninja suits, and then they say the names of all their animals and they just like put hoods and masks on. Was that necessary? Also, I guess Power Rangers was again ahead of its time wearing face masks. But yeah, they defeat the guys and open this big door and oh look, it's the great power they've been searching for. Oh, and guess what? That's what was hidden inside the box in Pulp Fiction. Turns out the great power is new Zords. Shocking, right? But hey, they get their morph suits back like they're back in their suits. I don't know how getting that is related to your old powers. I feel like you got new powers and then it's just like, oh, you're back to your old powers. So what was the point of the new powers? Was it just because it was easier to film the fight scenes in them? Ivan starts taking over the planet with his new monster things that he dug up from the ground. The Rangers, of course, get back in time after everything's already starting to be destroyed. They call upon their new Zords. Another thing I'll give this movie credit for is when they're using the Zords, they actually make the individual Zords useful. Because in the original show, the individual Zords never really did anything. They were just kind of there to combine into the Megazord. But in this movie, they actually fight for a little bit using the individual Zords, showing off their cool, unique powers. Like the frog has a long tongue that lashes around the scorpion-looking guy. Also, Fred meets up with all these kids at a party to tell them their parents are gonna die. I only like this scene because it makes me laugh how these kids are all partying with the Ooze. It makes it seem like Ivan Ooze sold them like drugs or alcohol. After the Rangers defeat one of the bug monsters, Ivan Ooze gets upset and does just a disturbing effect to put his body inside one of the bugs and it transforms into a giant version of himself. So of course we're ready for the Megazord battle. Also, remember that pig guy earlier in the movie? Yeah, I guess the movie forgot about him too because he's not in the rest of this movie. Like there's a bunch of scenes where you see Ivan and Goldar talking to each other. The pig guy's just not there. So if he was inside the building that Ivan picks up and uses as a weapon, he's probably dead because the only reason Goldar got away is because he flew away. And I highly doubt Pig Guy can fly. So RIP Pig Guy, I didn't remember who you were. They actually formed the Megazord first without Tommy because Tommy's off saving some kids in a very weird scene of him using his Zord as a train platform, which is just very convenient that his Zord is exactly the same length as the gap. So Tommy finally comes together with the Megazord to form the Super Megazord because adding the word super onto Mega, you know what? I need Power Rangers? I've said it enough times. They decide to take off into space. I don't know why. They just do. I guess they're gonna fight him in space. I guess they're destroying less things on Earth. So, and my God, Ivan Ooze is ugly. I just can't get over that. Ivan Ooze. He was cool in the beginning, but God, these Zords are so ugly. They come up with a genius plan to run him into a comet that I guess happens to be flying by at this time. I don't know, it's better than nothing. All the while, Fred is trying to save his dad and all the other kids' parents from dying. And this scene is just ridiculous. He tells all the kids, push their parents, keep them from jumping off the edge, and he picks up a water hose and sprays them in the back. And that's apparently giving them enough momentum to, like, push them forward. I don't know. I'm not even going to question it. I'm just going to let it happen. That happens in this movie. Oh, also during this moment, they finally remembered that Bulk and Skull are in this movie. And Zed and Rita. That happens like 5 seconds later. They're flying by in space and it's like, oh look, there's the snow globe. And considering how this movie has gone so far, how else would the Rangers beat Ivan Ooze than with a nut shot? I'm not kidding.
We have to break his grip!
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
What are you doing?
Taking care of business.
After Ivan's defeated, all the parents are like, oh, we're fine now. Yay, happy times. The Rangers go back to the command center and it's like, oh no, Zordon! Then they bring him back to life with the power of friendship. There's a celebration with fireworks. Tommy gives the kid Fred a pep talk, and the end. Happy endings, yay. So what are my final thoughts of this movie? Honestly, it's not that bad. At least the first 2/3 of the movie aren't that bad. The final fight scene is awful. Like, god-awful. I do wish there was more fight scenes with them in the actual Power Ranger suits and not the ninja suits. So yeah, Power Rangers is cheesy. Everyone knows it. It's basically just an extended toy commercial. However, it will always have a special place in my heart. So, would I recommend this movie? Sure, why not? If you were a fan of Power Rangers and you never saw this movie somehow, or if you're a fan of modern Power Rangers, go back and watch this because it's a decent representation of like what we got if you don't want to sit through hundreds of episodes of the old show. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. That was a fun time. If you enjoyed this video and you like, comment, subscribe, and do all those things, maybe I will review the god-awful piece of human fucking shit that was the newer Power Rangers movie. I don't have a very good opinion of that movie.